Hi, and welcome to the second episode of Uncorked with Shelly, my new podcast that I launched literally this week. Thank you so much to everybody that's been listening and giving incredible feedback. It's been phenomenal, and it really kind of made me feel right in speaking out the way I have been, because it isn't done here at all. It's not. It's something in Ireland that's always been the way of, you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't say what's on your mind. Men don't be men. Don't show feelings. Don't express who you are. And like, when did Ireland ever get it right? Like, when did society ever protect women in this country? Men were protected all the way through, but in fairness, they've done more damage to men by telling them, don't show emotions, don't show your feelings, don't speak. So like, I know the badness of bottling up feelings. I'm not one of those people. I never have been one of those people. I was always like a typical Scorpio, like fly off the handle really, really quickly. I'm very, very quick to apologize, but like, I literally usually would have set off a hurricane in my wake, but I'd feel so much better. Nobody around me would feel better, but I'd feel good, So I always describe it as, it's like the Green Mile, the movie, all the badness that he sucks in, and when he holds it down, he lets it out later on for the good purpose. But that's what I always describe it as. Like, if you think of all that negative energy that you're keeping down the entire time, like, it's not good to hold it in. Like, I genuinely feel that probably cancers, all those types of other things could be caused. I'm not saying like definitely caused by this, but I don't think it's healthy to bottle feelings, say absolutely nothing. It's much better to even vocalize it out loud, and speak out loud just to get it off your chest and get it out there. So that's definitely how I operate. So I do really appreciate the feedback, and I am going to keep shooting the shit the way I am. My husband was told that the podcast is there, so I kind of feel that I can speak a little bit more freely. He was hearing from everybody that I was talking on TikTok with regards to our marriage, which I was, and he knew I was. I spoke about that with him. But the thing that he thought was that I was bashing him verbally completely. And I think every person on here can back me up and say that I've never bashed my husband. I've obviously said things have been very difficult in the house here. Behaviours from both sides have not been good in the last few months. But the person that I've known for 25 years was my best friend. I hate saying not my best friend, because it's changed now. But he is the most spectacular human I've ever met in my entire life. And I don't know if I'd be lucky enough to ever meet another person like him. And that's genuinely how I feel about him. So I know I haven't verbally bashed him on here. I've just been very, very frank about my feelings with regards to what I did in the marriage, and to take ownership of what I did and to speak about it. Because as I said on the last episode, people do not talk about this at all, but this is like so common. I actually said it must be up until about 60% of marriages are either dead or going through major, they don't connect anymore, they're not compatible anymore, and you literally just plod through life, and that's literally it. But that's such a fucking waste of a life. Like, we get one crack at the whip here. This isn't a fucking do-over that you get to turn around later on and say, well, I'll just go back and sort that. Too fucking late. Like, live for now, live your life the way you feel you need to live it, and be fucking honest about it. So at least I'm trying to be real. I'm trying to be as honest as I can. And something, I bottled it for 25 years, and myself and my husband had a real big heart to heart last night. And I genuinely feel we've made a lot of ground last night. But the funny thing is, I did it for him and I did it for our family. But like, 25 years in, that's a quarter of a century. Am I supposed to give him the lifetime of the soulmate, and I get absolutely nothing, and never find that love, being in love? Like, I can't even say that I've ever had like somebody made love to me, because as far as I'm concerned, I was never in that space. So for me, I was never present. I was always hurry it up and get it over. And my God, I said this to him last night. I've said this to him over the months. This is not something that's not been discussed before. It is nothing to do with him. It's everything to do with me. And although he thought that this was fixable at one stage, it was never fixable. Once the alcohol veil was gone, I couldn't contain it anymore, and I couldn't bury it anymore. And frankly, I got to a stage at 42, I'm now 43, where I was like, no, this is actually my time now. This is actually, enough is enough. It hasn't changed in like our whole entire 25 years. And it's time to be real. Like my eldest child is 16. My youngest child is 10. Now I know she's still got an awful lot more rearing to do. And my middle child is 13 going on 18. But in fairness, the fact is my children will be gone in a few years' time. And I would have missed a window of finding what I wanted. And ultimately, the children having what would be a complete, happy, whole mum. Yes, I understand circumstances in this house are not going to be the same way that they expected them to be, and things change. But kids adapt. You know, right now, what I can see from my 3 children is I've been so honest. I've been so open with them with regards to everything that's been going on. And I think it's done me so well. Like, I haven't gone into huge amount of details with my 10-year-old because she's 10, but she is like really, I'd nearly trust her more than I would the middle one. She'll kill me for saying that. But like my youngest child is very, very independent. She's got a good little head on her shoulders and like she's very reliable. So like obviously I'm very mindful to the fact that she is 10, but like my son knows everything. And my middle daughter, she knows everything as well. And I think that the honesty side of things has been much better. And I think ultimately they would prefer to see their mum really, really happy than live a lie, you know. And I know my husband's hurting. We reached a point last night where Jesus, he said a few things to me that shocked the shit out of me. He said that he didn't fancy me for a long time. So in fairness, why the hell were you fighting for me for so long? Because like, Jesus, you could have made this a hell of a lot easier. But we definitely made common ground last night, and hopefully it's a sign of things to continue. He definitely said last night that there's no way back, and he understands there's no way back. So I'm kind of feeling an awful lot more positive about going forward, and rotating the house seems to be back on the cards, because I don't want to sell this house. I want to keep this house for as long as we can. We'll discuss it when my youngest turns to 18, but like rotating the house right now to keep the children in their own beds is the best option. And if me and him can do that, rotate it, I don't care if I come back on my time and it's not as clean as I want it. Like, that's shite, right? So I don't care about that. What I care about is that I have a week to myself to live in this house like it's mine, and it's mine only. And I don't have to tread on eggshells, and I don't have to be looking over my shoulder, and I don't have to be hiding in the attic. And I think for him, it helps him to move on too. So I think it's a win-win. It's not a case. He actually turned around to me last night and he said that an awful lot of people close to him had said about his parents' inheritance money. Did I do all that deliberately? And he actually turned around and goes, I don't believe that you did. I was like, I can't even believe that that's being discussed. Like, genuinely speaking, I've posted videos before, and I will go into it on this podcast, about how much I cared for my mother-in-law. No, I mean physically cared for her while she was sick. I was the one that took the brunt of every part of her care. I was the primary carer for her. She trusted me the most, and I was the one that was actually the executor of the will. I sold the house, I painted the house, I did everything when it came to her and the family, and not one of them can actually dispute that. My husband's brother, that has to be the truth. You know, it's the truth. My sister-in-law, I know she knows it, and she was amazing too, but her mother trusted me the most. I was the one person that she wanted to deal with these things, and that's just the way of it. And I adored her more than my own mother. As sad as that is to say, like, she's in the necklace that I wear, that I play with all the time. I don't take it off because she's close to me. Everywhere I go, she's close to me. And it was also said to me, would I've gone through it if she was alive? And the answer is no, I wouldn't have. I definitely wouldn't have done this in front of her. I wouldn't have wanted her to see this pain. So no, I wouldn't have done it. But the money thing, I think, is absolutely crazy to even say that, especially when, if I was that type of person, that I would genuinely be looking to boot him out and say, this is my house. You know, you can go to hell and find somewhere to live, and I'll go to the courts and I'll take everything. That is not who I am at all. As I said in videos on here before on TikTok, and I'm obviously saying it now on the podcast, that this is our home. This is his kitchen. This is our bathrooms, the house that we put the work into. I need us to live separately, but we can still share this house as our own for the next few years if we're willing to work at it. So as far as I'm concerned, There's no way I'm doing that. I would sell the house quicker than boot him out. I will never boot him out of this house. Now, he has said it to me, you can feckin' leave, there's the door. Well, I'm not doing that, and I'm not prepared to leave my children. Like, he's not prepared to leave his children. Everything is going to be 50-50. Everything. There is no discussion with me. I am not going to argue over sofas or feckin' TVs or anything else. I am literally going to be as amicable as possible. You want the TV, take the TV. I don't care. You know, as long as the equity in this house is split down the middle and him and me are the ones that control what happens to our children, I don't actually care at that point. So, like, that's the way of it. I'm going to be as fair as I possibly can, and that's just the way it's going to be. So at no point did I ever think that the inheritance money going into this house was going to be me walking away from the marriage. Sure, I was knocking back 45 cans a weekend at that stage. So I never thought that this feelings were going to brew up again, but they did. So anyway, on that point, I'm going to leave that to the side for the moment. I guess I was trying to figure out which way I want to go forward with the story. And the funny thing is, if people are expecting a structured podcast here, you know, like no disrespect to Georgie Crawford or anything, but this is not going to be rehearsed. This is not going to be structured. Nothing about my life is structured. So I am going to go with the flow on this. I am going to speak the way it comes out of my mouth, as I usually do. And yeah, I'll just go with what I want to say. So I kind of figured we kind of need to go backwards to go forward with the story. And I have said this on TikTok, so this isn't a new story for the people that follow me on TikTok. But basically, myself and my husband, we got together when I was 19, literally my 19th birthday. We met. I'd met him already previously. So basically I worked as, my first job was cabin crew for an airline called Futura, which was a holiday airline. Actually pretty much owned by Aer Lingus at the time when I worked for them, but it was Spanish owned, and I got the job with that and met a girl who became a really, really close friend really, really fast. And I was introduced to a friend of hers, and I immediately was mad about him. I thought he was fucking gorgeous. And we went out one night and we were really hitting it off. And he fucking went home and fucked a girl called Michelle that night. But actually drunkenly in the taxi, I actually told him, and it was just me and him in the taxi for some reason. I drunkenly told him that I fancied the arse off him and then went to sleep. So, but he had already kissed her in the bar. So he kind of figured that, well, you know, I've already, you know, opened that can of worms and I'll just finish off what I started as a typical guy. So he was with another girl that night. But the next day he was at my door. And she had brought him over and he was like, do you want to go on a date? And I was like, okay, grand. Yeah, like I'll go on a date and whatever else. And the two of us ended up going out with each other for a few months. And I was absolutely crazy about him. So this kind of moved me out of the area that I grew up in. So Swords is where I grew up in. So it kind of took me out of that environment and moved me out to like the Dublin 15 area, the Castleknock area, the Blanchardstown area, Clonsilla, all those kind of areas. And I loved it out there. I remember thinking it's a different vibe out here. It's a different way of life. I don't know if it's because it was closer to the city life, or maybe Castleknock had that upper class vibe about it, which that doesn't bother me. We didn't really hang out so much in Castleknock. We had a lot of friends from Castleknock and Navan Road and Ashling Heights and Ashington and places like that. But like I wasn't really chasing the upper class type of people. But I was at a party with my now ex-boyfriend, and at the party was my husband. And I didn't know it at the time, but my ex-boyfriend was part of the group before and was literally expelled from the group for whatever reason. I don't know, that he was my husband's best friend at one stage, to the point that they both went on holidays together. And I didn't know this. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea. So I'm going out with this guy, and he was my husband's best friend, but not when me and my husband were ever together. There was never a crossover between two guys. Well, in fairness, at this party, my boyfriend at the time got up to go to the toilet. And as soon as he got up to go to the toilet, this fucking charming guy comes straight over to me. How you doing? You know, totally to rub it up the nose of the guy that I'm seeing quite clearly. But he was such a charmer with me that I was like, well, I can't really not say hello. And I don't understand at this stage that he was his old best friend. I was just thinking somebody was coming up and speaking to me. But he was obviously doing two fingers up at his old best mate that, you know, I'm just going to talk to your bird while you're in the jacks. And that was it. So a few months later, myself and this his boyfriend, we ended up breaking up, right? And it was so weird because I remember him turning around to me on a phone call and saying, whatever you do, don't get with my husband, right? And I was like, that's so bizarre. Like, I hadn't seen him since like 3 months beforehand. Why would you throw out that name to me, you know, about don't be with him? Because I only had one interaction literally at that one time at that party. And he was saying to me, just don't get with him. And I think it was probably less than a week later, it was my 19th birthday. And we were at the same girl that had introduced the two of us together at her 21st birthday party, but her birthday wasn't until a few days later. But it was actually my physical birthday. So at that party, we were there and he was there, my ex-boyfriend, and now husband was also there. And literally, I was at the bar and my husband had come up to me and immediately just like started talking to me and chatting to me. And with that, we started kissing at the bar. And all of his friends literally stood up and roared, waving €20 notes around. Well, £20 notes at the time, you know, it was 2001. So £20 notes around as if my husband had won the bet. And like the whole fucking bar ended up hearing this. So I literally ran off. I was like, shit, like the ex is over there. These guys have literally just announced to the entire bar that I've just kissed this guy that I was told not to kiss. And I've just gone and done it. So it was really like, you know, shit. So the next couple of days, or the next time we went out drinking, me and this friend of mine, she had thought that it was going to be funny to bring me to a bar and embarrass me by making the other person, my now husband, show up in the bar as if it was going to be this, oh, look at you, you're so scarlet. But it completely backfired. He knew that I was going. I didn't know he was going. And we were inseparable immediately. And literally from that point on, that was it. So the 2nd of November, which is my birthday, was our anniversary. Typically for my whole lifetime, it was the correct anniversary. And I was 19. So I think it was about a day or two days later where we were inseparable. So we've literally been together since then. And things were unbelievable, amazing from the get-go. Now, the only thing I do want to stipulate is, and I have said this to him, and I remember saying it to him when we started going out, I was still crazy about the ex. Like, the ex was still 100% in my head, as I was mad about him, absolutely mad about him. And the only reason I broke up with him is because I knew it was coming. So I jumped first and made sure that I was the dumper as opposed to the dumpee. But like, ultimately, I probably didn't want to break up with him at all. You know, it was just, the relationship was boring. I was working, flying all the time, and just didn't have the time to be in the relationship or whatever else, and it fizzled out. But I remember saying it to my husband when we started going out. I remember saying, if there was a fight between the two of you, I don't know who I'd stick up for. And he was literally like, well, fuck you, you know, like, you can go and fuck yourself. Now, he didn't say this to me. He told me like years later about it. And he was basically saying, like, I really want to walk from this. But he was like, actually like her, so we'll see what happens. So we ended up staying together. And as I said, the feelings, I think from the get-go, that little glitch that I'd already had with the ex-boyfriend still in my mind must have had some sort of part in why the feelings didn't hit the way they were supposed to. And yeah, but I was crazy about him in every other way. We were literally inseparable. Like, he read my mind. Like, he was the opposite to me in every way. And my family would always say it, you know, typical Scorpio, Scorpio bitch. And there's this guy who's actually completely able to ground me, mad as a fucking egg. Like, my husband's nuts, like, but he's an Aquarius, so he's much calmer, he's much more chilled, he's much more, you know, the brighter side of life, you know, the glass half full, and I would have been the pessimist, you know, so we really complemented each other in such a good way. But like, he was a nutcase too, so like, we're talking two nutcases together, but we definitely meshed very well. And I remember thinking that immediately, that, you know, this guy is amazing. Like, he gets me so much. We're so good together. You know, I definitely think that there was roads that I could have gone down when I was 17, 18, you know, the drug route, or, you know, I think I probably had one of those addictive personalities, and I was probably afraid of going down the wrong route. But I chose wisely, like, in the end. I think I made sensible decisions for somebody who was nuts at 14, like completely fucking nuts at 14, wild. Spent more time being fucking grounded than I did anything else. And the same in school. I was fucking suspended literally every fucking week. I was like, I didn't come into school on a Tuesday, so now you're giving me a week off. This is crazy. This is like the best holiday ever. Like, Eddie Rockets must have loved me, because we were in there every single day for probably about 8 hours a day and probably only bought a coffee and, fries. They fucking hated us. They actually hated us. But that's like, this was the way things were. I was kind of really confident, I suppose, in the fact that he was good for me. So that's kind of where I went. Plus my family really liked him. I really liked his family. I really liked everything around what was happening. The group of friends, I liked it all. So it was like I fell in love with all of them, or fell in love with them is probably the wrong word, considering I've said that my feelings for him were wrong, but I fell in love with the package, I suppose, if that makes sense. So myself and him were really wild at the start. So like it was the two of us out drinking in the areas around Blanchardstown, Dublin 15, Castleknock. We were drinking in the Buddha Bar, which is now Krispy Kreme. It was one of our haunts that we used to go to, and we were having sex in the toilets. Like we literally were all over each other all over the time. Like we literally had sex on the pavement in the Blanchardstown Centre, like just on the fucking ground. We did it anywhere. We literally used to drink in the Roselawn Inn, and on the Clonsilla Road used to have the old Ulster Bank, and we used to go behind the Ulster Bank and we used to literally have sex on the patio or outside the back where the cameras were. We used to literally have sex there, and we would probably be doing that Friday night and Saturday night. Like the camera guys that were looking at the security of that must have been like, here's the fucking couple again. It was so funny because they actually erected huge metal gates probably a year into our relationship. So I always laughed. We both did. Like, were we responsible for those gates, or, was there a parking issue? But like we were riding all over Blanchardstown. Like it was so full on. So ultimately, the inevitable happened with me and him. And I think about 4 months into the relationship, I found out that I was pregnant. And when I found out that I was pregnant, it was a shock. I don't know why it was a shock, but it was. And the only people that knew about it was him and myself. And he was very honest at the start. He was very much like, we're too young for this, and but I will fully support your decision. So like ultimately the decision is yours. And I was 100% adamant that, well, I'm sorry, but I would never have an abortion. I don't believe in it. It's not something that I ever would do. This is after happening. I'm 19, so we're going to have to fess up and we're going to have to deal with it. So that's pretty much what was in my mind at the time. And I just started with Aer Lingus. So a temporary job. It was going to be 6 months only, no security. This was literally back when you had to fight to the death to get a permanent job in Aer Lingus. And I only got a permanent job after working in Aer Lingus probably about 6 years of being let go. So it is impossible to get a job like that that's going to give you the security of a permanency. So this job was obviously temporary. But I started telling people that I was actually pregnant because as far as I was concerned, this was going to happen. We've discussed it. The decision is mine. And yeah, I told people I was feeling like pregnant, as you do. I felt absolutely exhausted, tired. Like I was like, the eyes were just literally like falling out of my head. But that was the only pregnancy symptom that I had, bar cravings for Capri Suns. Obviously something to do with vitamin C, because I was craving Capri Suns and the likes of fizzy orange, like Club Orange or whatever. So these were the symptoms that I had, but that was it. No other symptom. You wouldn't have known that I was pregnant other than that, And I remember saying it to my sister. I told my sister, I'm the youngest of 4 girls, and I told my sister that I was pregnant. And like, she was supportive when I told her. Her reaction was positive. Like, she's my sister. She'd obviously support me or whatever else. So she actually went home. It didn't start out maliciously. I'm very sure of that it never started out maliciously. But she told my eldest sister. And my eldest sister told my parents. And again, I don't think my eldest sister also went in there, gung-ho saying this is what's after happening. I think that they were just literally looking out for me, and they said it. And they said, this is what's happening. But the reaction that they got from my mother was really like, the reaction I got was so unexpected. I couldn't believe it. She was always in the younger days when we were younger, she was a great mum. She used to bake. She used to do an awful lot of things like that. But my mother came from a really well-to-do family, upper class, Drumcondra. The mother and father had a lot of money. They had hotels. they were high society. Like, genuinely, my mother was from quite a rich family, like to the point that she had a live-in housemaid. And my father was from Balbriggan in a feckin' 3-bed, at the time, I'm presuming it was a council house with 9 children. So there was 11 of them living in that house. So it was like my mother ran out and married the musician or whatever else just to piss her family off. But she was ultimately a good mother, but she was never reared by her mother. The term that was always used for her was children are to be seen and never heard. So she was raised by her nanny. Like, her nanny, the live-in maid, was her mother. So she always had that coldness about her, even though for me, like, you could jump on her lap and, you know, you could get your hugs and she'd play with your hair. And yeah, like, I have great memories of when I was younger, of being put into the bath and she'd French plait my hair and the fire would be going and we'd be watching, I don't know, feckin' MacGyver or feckin', Blind Date and all those things. And she'd bake on Saturdays. She'd bake gorgeous. She'd make eclairs fresh. Like, she was such a good baker, you know, when we were younger. So I definitely have lovely childhood memories up until a point. Because we got to a point where I don't know what it was. Was she unhappy in herself? She ended up going back to work and she literally come home from work, go straight to bed, get up and drink wine. And that was it. There was no, was your homework done? Do you need help with this? I'll make your lunch. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll do whatever needs to be done. She just stopped parenting us at a very young age. And it was like, done, job done. You know, you're like 10. You can now go off and be an adult and whatever else. And it was kind of put to the care of my sisters to kind of look out for each other, because my dad would have been busy as a musician. He was always in a band. He was in a famous band in the 60s. So he was always gigging and there was always, you know, music going on in the house. So anyway, I know I'm getting a little bit off the point, but the fact is, the point that I'm trying to say is she actually was quite maternal when she was younger. Really weirdly, in the 70s, my mother and father used to take in pregnant women. They used to take them in, instead of them going to these feckin' Magdalene laundries that they would have been dumped in. My parents used to take them in for the duration of their pregnancy. They'd obviously go into a hospital to have these babies and then they'd be let go and then they'd take in another pregnant woman. So this is what they did. And my grandfather used to stand for pregnant women in the hospitals that were going to be completely ostracized by society. And he stood as a godfather because apparently back in the 60s, they wouldn't allow you to baptize that child because it's a bastard child. And I have an awful lot more to go into on this story with regards to what my family had to endure with all of that sort of stuff, but I'll get to it at another point. But so this is the stuff that my family did. And yet they heard that I was pregnant. And when she heard that I was pregnant, it was like as if a switch flipped in her, and that, you know, the neighbours would know about it. And this is, you know, we can't be having this in our house and our family and nobody can know about this. This needs to be dealt with and it needs to be dealt with now. And that seems to have been the go-to mentality that seemed to have been in that house. And sure, then obviously she had projected that onto others. So Alex, my sister, who is an amazing support, was made to book an abortion for me. And Gillian, my sister, who I absolutely adore, they said nothing. They kind of just said nothing. But the abuse that I had gotten from the likes of my mother, my other sister, they all kind of wore me down in that house. I remember being told that you're never going to get support. You're going to be on your own. You're going to be on the streets. There's going to be nobody around to help you with this baby. You're going to be alone. You're going to be poor. You're going to miss your 20s. That didn't bother me, missing the 20s. As far as I was concerned, something had happened. It was my responsibility. And Jesus Christ, I felt pregnant. I felt like, this is my baby. I want to protect it, you know? So like, it was something that I never wanted. And I know when I posted it up on TikTok, an awful lot of people came back to me and said, well, nobody was ever going to take my baby away from me. You know what? Hats off to you. But as far as I was concerned, maybe I felt weaker than you did at that point. I definitely didn't feel that it was right for me to bring a baby into the world when everybody was against me. Everyone. There was nobody sitting there saying, I'm going to help you. I had my best friend at the time had a baby at 18 and she was fully there to support me, but there was nothing she could do. I needed a family member to tell me that this is okay. We're going to get through this. We're going to support you and we're going to help you. You know, you can be a mum and we're going to back you. No, they didn't do that. It was literally clinic is booked in the UK and you're fucking going. And that's the end of it. And the funny thing is, my partner or my boyfriend at the time, who had said that he was fully going to support me, I had said, I wasn't having an abortion. All of a sudden I'm going to the UK, and he said fucking nothing. Absolutely nothing. He sat there like as if that's great. And you know something, I love him as a person, and I'll never shit on him. But he is a very, very intelligent, analytical person. Very intelligent. He is very strategic, and in a funny way, to get what he wants, he can manipulate a situation to his advantage. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, I'll give you an example. He was at a house party once, and they were smoking weed on the balcony, but it was pissing rain, right? And our other friend, Aaron, who was murdered in Ongar recently, and I've more stories to say about him as well, but Aaron lived across the hall, and Aaron never cared about smoking in his apartment. So Patrick texted him and he was like, come over for a joint. So he scooted over to the house and he was like, why the fuck are we out in the rain? And Patrick was like, yeah. He was like, come to my house and smoke a joint. He was like, of course. So that was the manipulation that Patrick had. He had the ability to think outside the box and get what he wanted, you know? So that's the way he kind of functioned. But this time he strategically stayed quiet. So he didn't want the baby. He didn't want me to go down that road, but he was saying to me that he would support me when ultimately he knew what was happening in my house and he didn't say anything. So eventually I was worn down so much to the point that I was exhausted with the fight, absolutely exhausted. And I remember my sister, the second eldest sister, shouting down the stairs at me that I was going to be the worst fucking mother in the world. And, you know, you're a fucking disgrace to think if you can bring that baby into the world. How fucking selfish are you? And I remember thinking that was the final nail in the coffin. That was literally the last person that was going to say this to me. I was done fighting at that point. And I remember thinking that that's it. You know, nobody's on my side. If I had one person on my side, I would have gone for it. And the funny thing is, I was told not to tell the in-laws his side about it. And sure, I was only going out with him 4 months. It was such a new relationship that I did what I was told. So it was obviously booked for me to go to the UK. And I remember going over, and I remember thinking at the time that I hated the fact that we all worked in Aer Lingus, that it was so accessible to get a flight so fast. This is back in like 2001, 2002. So it wasn't as accessible now to book a flight so quickly. Like, you know, it was more of a prestige, I suppose, even back then. And the clinic was booked for me to go in Ealing. And I remember thinking, going, that I'll go because I'm going to tell them over there that I'm being forced, and surely they'll stop it. And that's what I think was my last ditch thought in my head that would happen. And that's not what happened. So once I got to Ealing, they sent me to a different clinic. I had to go to another clinic about 10 minutes walk from the actual clinic to, like, ironically scan my uterus to see where my baby was. You know, was it in my uterus or was it in a fallopian tube? So this was done. And I remember being so upset. I remember telling the woman that I was being forced, and she didn't care. She didn't care at all. So when I went back to the actual abortion clinic, I remember saying to them there that everybody in the waiting room out there is forcing me to have this abortion. I don't want one. I want to keep the baby. I want to keep the child. And it was really like a pleasantry smile at me. It was really like, yeah, that's nice. You need to sign this release form here, you know, because you're getting a general anaesthetic. And just in case there's any complications with the anaesthetic, sign. You know, so that's the way it was. And I was like, oh my God, nobody's stopping this. This is happening. They're literally going to make me do this. So I ended up upstairs in this room, probably still in my head thinking this can't happen. And I was in the bed waiting to be called in this room, like a long room, like a corridored room with beds with girls. Probably a lot of them made the choice to be there. I've no idea, but certainly I didn't make the choice to be there. And then I was called in. It was my turn to go in. And I remember going into the room, and the guy who was going to do the procedure, he told me to tell me a bit about my job while he was administering the anaesthetic. And that was it. I was gone. I didn't even probably get a fucking sentence before that was it. And that was it. It was done. So everybody was delighted. You know, I was brought back home to Dublin shattered, absolutely shattered. My soul was shattered. I'd literally just had a baby that I wanted removed from me, and everybody happy around me. Like, how can you imagine what that feels like? You know, at 19, this isn't like I was 14 or 15. This was literally, I was an adult. They could have helped. They chose not to, but they could have helped. And I remember being put to bed crying my eyes out. So the next day I got up, and there's no other way to describe it. I was an absolute cunt to everybody in the house. I was an absolute bitch because I was so angry by what had happened, and I didn't know how to cope. As far as everybody was concerned, it was, job done, it's finished. It's such an Irish way. We don't discuss it. Now that that's over, you don't need to talk about this anymore. So that's what it was like. And I was left reeling with the mental feelings of what just happened to me. Nobody gave a fuck. Nobody cared how it affected me. Nobody gave a shit. As far as they were concerned, it was over. He was delighted. He was absolutely delighted. So the next day, obviously, as I said, that I was very, very difficult in the house. My father was the only one that wasn't told. It was kept from him. And he thought that I went to London on a shopping trip. So me being the cunt that I was in that house, he roared at me in his bedroom and he says, "You're such a fucking brat. Like, you've just had an amazing trip to London and like, look at your behaviour." And I turned around him and I just roared back at him and I said, "I didn't have a fucking good day in London. I was forced to have an abortion yesterday." So he was so fucking angry. He was gobsmacked. He wasn't angry with me. He was very calm with me. He hugged me. He was so angry that he was kept in the dark and that this was done behind his back. Years later, he actually told me that that day was the end of his marriage, which is utter bullshit. Absolute fucking bullshit. He is using something that happened to me to basically condone the fact that he didn't love my mother and he wanted to have an affair and leave her. So it was nothing to do with what happened to me and the fact that he was kept in the dark. Because 7 months later, I found out that I was pregnant again. So the exact same thing happened again. Now, the funny thing is, my husband turned around to me recently, he goes, "Did you plan that?" And I was like, "No, I fucking didn't plan that. You and me were fucking jumping off the fucking bus the entire time. What do you fucking expect to happen? Both of us were in it. Like, you were fucking not wearing a condom half the time. I didn't fucking plan it. But I also didn't think, this was going to happen again. But to make sure I didn't think it was going to happen again, I said nothing for 12 weeks. So bear in mind, I was almost 8 weeks when I was forced to have the first abortion. And the second time, I didn't say anything to anybody bar him. He knew about it. And he also said the exact same thing again, that he was going to fully support me, that it's up to us now, your decision, whatever else. And same bullshit happened again. I got to 12 weeks and I said, well, I'm now at a clear stage. The 12 weeks where you start telling people. And I was like, I'm going to say it now. So I told my same sister, that is my closest sister. And she did the same thing again. She went home to the same sister, the eldest sister, and the eldest sister told both parents this time. And it was all out fucking war immediately. I've never seen them work so fast. They knew that I was further along. I was ostracized completely in that house. The fucking abuse that I got, especially from my father. Like, he'd come into my face so aggressively and he would call me a slut and a whore and "You're on your fucking own. You're such a fucking dirty girl." All these things he was fucking saying to me. I remember being in my room for a whole weekend. I avoided everybody. So upset. And I remember walking out of my room and all I could hear immediately when I walked out of the room was, "She's not getting fucking fat around here." It was relentless. It was from every fucking direction. And they were all in on it again. Didn't know that it was already booked, the same abortion clinic. As I said, they worked really fast. And I remember thinking in the back of my head, he had to have known, my partner, my ex-husband. He must have known, because how could he again say nothing about it? Now, I learned years later that my eldest sister actually rang him in work. He was working in IBM at the time. Now, my husband has actually confirmed that this is correct, that the memory that I had is true. And she said to him that this is what's happening in the house and this is what's being put forward to Michelle, that she's going to the UK. And basically, he was told to say nothing. So he apparently said on the phone to her that it's Michelle's decision. I don't believe it for a second, because you were told at that point what was happening in my house and you said nothing to me. You never came to me. You never said, "We're a team. This is you and me." He fucking said nothing. So that whole conversation just proved to me years later that actually you were worse than my family. Like, you were the fucking cause of it all, because you were the one that was supposed to protect me and you didn't, So I ended up finding myself Heading back to the UK again, I was absolutely devastated. And this time my father went. And actually, I didn't say this on TikTok when I did the videos. He was such a bastard to me at the airport. He was giving out about the price of OK magazine. He was just an absolute bastard. And I remember, I said this on TikTok, that I remember thinking in my head, why the fuck are you here? I don't need you here. In fact, I don't need fucking any of yous. You know, yous can all just go and fuck off out of my life after this. This is how I felt. But he actually went to the UK to support me, he said. He didn't. He went to buy a fucking guitar. When I was in there having his second grandchild taken forcibly out of me, he was buying a guitar. That's literally the family that I was actually living with. You know, that's how much love he had for me, you know? So we ended up over in the UK, the exact same shit again, the same fucking abortion clinic, the same fucking other clinic to have a scan. And I remember saying to the woman who was scanning me that you can give me a photograph of this. I'm not leaving with nothing this time. And she was very kind. She gave me the photograph and she sat me down and she spoke to me about, you know, there's the head, there's the body, there's the legs, whatever else. And that's great. She wasn't stopping it. The money was paid for. Her job was to clearly, you know, follow through with procedures. And I was sent back to the other clinic. When I got back to the other clinic, I said the same thing again. I'm being forced. Everybody in that waiting room is forcing me. This is my second time here and you're about to force me to do it again. And I don't want this. So this is literally the second time that I'm being forced. I've told these people in the clinic that I'm being forced. And it was the exact same bullshit that it was like 7 months beforehand. It was sign on the dotted line, you're having an anesthetic, you know, there's risks that come with it and you need to sign your signature. They didn't give a flying fuck that I wanted that baby and that they were going to remove it from me. They didn't want to give the money back. They had a job to do now. So that's all they cared about. Like, to add insult into injury, I was back in the exact same bed. The exact same bed that I was in the year before, or 7 months before. I couldn't believe it. I absolutely couldn't believe that I fucking found myself back in this position again. Like, how the fuck could I have been so stupid? How could I have said it to them? I should have fucking said nothing. I should have kept it to myself and said nothing to anybody. But I didn't. I thought that I was going to be safe and I wasn't. And I'm now sitting in this clinic. And as far as I was concerned, it was all my fault. You know, it was all my fault. I'm going to lose this baby and it's my fault. You know, I don't know why I'm getting emotional now. I try to hold it in as best as I can. I'm more emotionally scarred about the way I was treated as opposed to what happened with the babies. Now, and I don't want that to sound as cold as it is. I've made peace with the babies. You know, I have 3 beautiful children now, and it does hurt me that they're full siblings of the babies that I have now. And they could have been anything, absolutely anything that they wanted to society, because the 3 children that I have now are exceptional humans. So, you know, but the abuse is what scars me the most. So what keeps it in the forefront of my mind is what they did and how they left me, you know. So anyway, went in for this procedure, and the guy who was doing the anesthetic for me turned around to me and said, count back from 10. I know I didn't even get to 8. I was out cold. And when I was being taken down on the trolley in the lift afterwards, I woke up screaming. I mean, I must have screamed the building down. I was like as if I was possessed. I was roaring, crying, like screaming, like so loud. And I just remember it went on what felt like forever. And I know I was screaming for the baby that I knew that they had taken away from me. I know it was that. No, I know I was obviously coming out of an anesthetic wrongly because of what had happened. I knew what had happened. I was forced to have a second abortion. I was traumatized, and the anesthetic, I came out of that anesthetic when I wasn't supposed to. I was clearly supposed to be under, but my brain knew what happened and it came out screaming. And it was the most traumatic event ever for me. And yeah, that was it. It was the exact same as the first time. Done and dusted. Everybody's happy. Don't need to talk about it. Nobody speaks about it again. Not one person turned around to me afterwards and like, are you okay? You know, let's talk about it. Like, let's get you through the other side from this. This is such a big ordeal. You just lost your babies, you know? And no, they didn't do that. Nobody did that. And I remember being in the pub with him as my boyfriend at the time. And I remember being like drunk at the end of the night. And I'd always say things to him like I was the first person, you know, to ever have your baby or your babies, you know, because I was trying to process it and I was trying to vocalize how I was feeling. And I could just see it all over his face. Would you ever stop talking about this? It's done. It's dusted. And I'm happy. I don't want to talk about this anymore. And I was left reeling. So there was so many times that I remember leaving the pub going, it was spewing out of me only with drink on me. And I remember thinking, I can't even talk to you about it. I can't even try and heal through you because I'm being told to shut up about it, that you don't care, that you were happy and great, you know? So I remember carrying that with me forever. Absolutely forever. I'm 43 now, and I gave the dates wrong on TikTok. I must have been because I was talking so fast and it was flowing out of me so fast. So the first abortion happened on the 24th of May, which is actually my best friend's birthday, or what, she was my best friend. She's now my best friend again, her birthday. And that was 7 weeks pregnant. And the second one was the 15th of April, the next year. And I was 12 weeks pregnant at that one. 12 weeks, like a fully grown baby at that stage. All it needed to do was to mature and grow. Can you imagine what that's like when you were being forced? And again, I felt like I was to blame because I opened my mouth. I'm the one that killed that baby because I spoke to somebody that I trusted and thought that I was going to be okay. And ultimately, it wasn't that didn't happen for me. So I remember thinking at that time, like, it wasn't too long afterwards that I ended up leaving the house. I moved out and I rented a room in Applewood. I couldn't live with my father anymore. He was such a difficult person to live with, and it was just so difficult. So I remember literally running out of that house. And truth be told, I think I ran to my husband, you know, to the safety net of his family that were a certain way. And obviously knowing that he was good for me. And to be perfectly honest with you, I didn't put two and two together back then as to how responsible he actually was, you know. And now looking back on it, he's the most responsible person there is for what happened to me. He is 100% the person that I blame the most, because how could he not be? He was the one that said he was going to support me and back me, yet he didn't do that. He literally fed me to the fucking wolves and left me to be fucking brutalized in my house and worn down to the point that I had no other choice but to go and do what he wanted, ultimately for him to get his way. So I don't think that it was done out of malice. I don't think it was done because he didn't give a fuck about me. I think it was done because ultimately he felt that was the right decision to do. But was it? Like, you know, like now he knows that it's part of the reason his marriage is gone. You know, like now he understands what he's done to me. He fucking ripped my soul out. Like, I never recovered ever from that. Never recovered from it. So at 43 years of age now, I'm still talking about it. Do you know what I mean? When I posted it up on TikTok, I got an awful lot of mothers messaging me as to asking what would I do in those circumstances if it happened today, for example. So I have two daughters and I have a son, and my son is going out with his girlfriend almost a year. She's beautiful, she's lovely, and whatever else. What would I do? I can tell you one thing I would do. I would sit them down and I would discuss the options. I would tell them exactly what's facing them with regards to my support. Either way, with whatever decision you decide, you're going to get my backing. I will never force one of my children to do what happened to me, because you can't. You get to 42 or 43 years of age and you're fucking scarred. Like, the people in those clinics that made those decisions, it sits differently with them. They make peace with it, you know, because they decided. It wasn't a fucking gun held to their head to basically say you're doing it, you know. So how do you make peace with that? You know, when it's not your decision and it's taken out of your hands. So you can't. So for my children, no, they will only get told that they have my love and support the whole way, and whatever decision they decide, they get my backing. So if they have the baby, they have the baby, and their mother will be there to support them. You know, it's not that I want a teenage pregnancy in my house. I wasn't like really a teenager. I was 19 and I was fucking 20 the second time. So I was an adult both times, and that was done on me. You know, so I genuinely would never do that ever to a living soul. I wouldn't treat a fucking dog like that. Genuinely speaking, wouldn't treat a dog like that. So the relationship obviously between me and him progressed, and we ended up, he bought an apartment with his sister a couple of years later, but not too much longer. And I was pretty much living in the apartment. I was there fecking the whole weekends, probably half the week as well. And eventually I moved in. And I moved in because his sister was kind of like, for fuck's sake, you might as well just move in and contribute to bills. You're here so much, you know. So I did, but I couldn't live with the sister. She was actually very difficult. And I remember my husband's father turned around to me, and I got along really, really well with him. He didn't get along so much with her. He adored her, and this hurts her. Like, she carries this now because he's no longer alive. He loved her. He absolutely adored her. She was the apple of his eye. But as a father-daughter relationship, she was very difficult. And she knows she was. She was an out-and-out cow. And everybody knew she was an out-and-out cow. And I love her to bits now. Absolutely love the bones of her. And she does carry it. And it is sad. But I couldn't live with her. He turned around to me and he was like, 2 women in the kitchen doesn't work. Now, he didn't say it to her. He said it to me. So he was like, you're fucking nuts living with her. She's difficult to fuck, And he was right. So I ended up moving back home to my house in Swords in December 2008. And by fucking January, I was pregnant. So this is 2009. So several years later, at this stage, I was 26. So found out I was pregnant probably, I don't know, a few weeks later, and nobody was taking this baby away from me. This was my fucking baby. I don't care who wants to take me where. Nobody's taking me anywhere. This is my fucking child. And I didn't care at that stage. For me now, this was it. This baby was happening. So that's actually my son now, who's 16, wandering around, and he is the most amazing fella in the world. Like, he says, I love you all the time. I get gorgeous hugs off him. He is just... Everybody who meets him says his manners is impeccable. Now he's, a teenager, but he's great. So I'm so blessed to have like a lad like him. He's 16. He gives me zero shite, like zero crap. He is the most coolest kid. We've got a very good open relationship. He knows exactly what's going on with me. And as I said, no trouble whatsoever. He does not stay out. He does not come home. When I ask him, would you go to the shops for me? It's always an immediate yes. Will you empty the dishwasher? Of course I will. Ask my middle child to empty the dishwasher. She looks at me like I've 10 heads. I'm not doing that for you. It's literally like, Jesus, you're the female. You're going to be so useless in a house when you're older. It's shocking. Whereas he is such a good natured guy, and he was always like that. I don't know what it is. He was given a train set by one of our closest friends, myself and my husband. He doesn't talk to me anymore for obvious reasons, because I'm speaking out to the world and they don't agree with it. I'm sorry, guys, but unfortunately, I'm not doing it to hurt my husband. I'm doing this because I honestly felt, number one, I needed to speak, but number two, it was happening everywhere. This wasn't something that wasn't happening around the place. Nobody fucking talks about it. And I've never shit on Patrick once in these videos. Never. So I wouldn't do that to him. So anyway, a train set was bought for my son for his first birthday. And he was Thomas obsessed. So I don't know if it's a difference with Thomas, the tank engine kids that love Thomas. They're much gentler souls. They're not bashing cars into cars and whatever else. And they're not fucking like into wrestling or anything like that. He was obsessed with Thomas. All things Thomas. He'd spend days lining up his trains, and he had a trike. We had a trike for him. We ended up moving out of the apartment to get the house that we're in now. And I had to live for 3 months in my mother-in-law's house, which was a nightmare. As much as I love my mother-in-law, it was so difficult being in a house with another woman and having, dinners taken away from you and all those type of decisions away from you. So I always kind of was like, oh, it's so difficult being there. But she had, like, in her house, she had the kitchen and the sitting room and the sitting room door. It was actually like a rotate, like you could walk through like that. And he'd be on the trike at 2 years of age, and he'd be doing corner speed on the trike. He'd be flipping it into the corners. He had a little basket on it for his trains to sit into, because he was holding the trains like this while he was going around. And it was just so comical. And actually now, as a 16-year-old, in the attic that I sleep in, which is my room, there's a big table that my husband made him, and it's got all the expensive Bachmann trains or the Hornby ones. He's got a really big collection of the adult trains. So he still loves them. As much as he doesn't play with them anymore, he always says that he's going to make the town model, which I really hope someday he actually does it, because that table's going to have to get the fuck out of my attic soon. Like, literally, when you move out, Sean, you're taking the table with you. But so I don't know if they have some sort of a kind soul about them. And for me, the one thing that I always said when it came to my children was manners was key, because working in the airport, when it came to a lot of businessmen, weirdly enough, like, they treat you like dog shit in the airport. Not every person. So many people would be so nice going through. A lot of celebrities would be lovely to you, but there was a lot of business class travelers that were assholes. I remember the amount of times that a guy would come up and fuck a passport at me. And literally I'd be thinking there to myself, geez, your mother must be so fucking proud. What a bang up job she did. Like, you're just... you can have money, but you've no like manners. You're just a piece of shit. So it was always manners is key for me. And like he'd go through the supermarket when he was 3 or 4 and he'd be at the checkout and he'd be like, thank you. And they'd be like, oh my God, his manners is so good. Or he'd be walking across a zebra crossing and he'll always wave to the car to say thanks. And you know, it's very rare you see it, you know, so the cars would always wave back going, oh my God, like well done, you know. And when I see a kid do it now, which again, it's rare, I will always sit there and go, deadly, like that's a great child, like well done, you know, for the rearing of that kid. Because if you're nice and kind and treat other people with respect, life is going to be so much better for you. Like you're already winning the race. You know, if you're a nasty person, cold-hearted person, and just grumpy and mean and whatever else, life is bitter. Like life isn't easy. You're looking at everything hard, and you can be whatever success you want in life. But if you're going to be that person, you're just nasty, you know? So I don't like that. For me, you know, manners is key and whatever else. So I guess this has been quite a long part of the podcast, so to speak. But what I'm going to say, wrapping it up, is I definitely realised when I stopped drinking alcohol this time around, as to the feelings being suppressed by him and whatever else, what happened years ago played a big role in my feelings and changed me with my feelings. How could it not? You know, I was carrying this around. I was scarred from it. And then obviously I ended up having my son. And then 2 years later, my daughter came. And, you know, you're a family unit then. So at that point, it's not going to say anything now. You know, this is the life that I've chosen and I'm here. And he is my best friend, like through and through. As I said before, even on TikTok videos, and I probably said it on the last podcast episode, I used to get giddy when he'd come home from work, like genuinely. I remember the dread from when my father would come home from work, hated it. Like I'd clean the house when I was younger. My dad used to bully me something horrendous when I was younger. Truth be told, he didn't want me. This isn't like me bullshitting this. He was actually having apparently the best affair of his life with a woman in the hotel that he was working in. And apparently it was the most spectacular affair ever. And my mother then got pregnant. Sure, he was going home and he was literally turning her over and having sex with her. And I was the product of that. Now, I'm not the product of the affair. I'm the product of my mother with my sisters. But I wasn't a wanted child. When he found out that she was pregnant with me, for 9 months, he didn't speak to her. She literally, my mother had a best friend, and she has images of my mother in the kitchen with the bump with me, crying her eyes out because she was so alone with 3 other children. And he's fucking off to Bangkok every fucking year for 2 months of the year with his band. And he's fucking every person that's going. And there she is dealing with the kids at home. And she tried her best, you know, for a woman that had a really not a great upbringing. You know, she might have had money and she might have had, you know, beautiful home and whatever else and the riches, but she wasn't reared by her mother. She was coldly reared, and she really tried very, very hard with 3 children and the fourth on the way. So he was always nasty to me. Now, there was times where I knew he loved me, you know, like he did show affection to me. But he bullied me like spectacularly for years. My sisters know this is true. This is not something that I'm lying about. He systematically sought me out every day to find something that I did. And when I did it, he would annihilate me for it. But he'd never look at the good in me. He'd never look at what I did do as opposed to what I didn't do. So like I'd come home from school every day and I would clean the house. The kitchen would be spotless. I'd have the music on and loved the peaceful time after school, getting the place organised. Now I'd been in secondary school at this stage as well doing this. And he'd come home and he'd find my cereal bowl on the couch. And when he'd find the cereal bowl on the couch, I was annihilated. Do you know what I mean? Like instead of looking around saying, Jesus, did you clean that kitchen? Well done. And he'd come in and fucking ruin the kitchen within 2 seconds of looking at it. It'd be like a dog's dinner. Like, why did I even bother? Because you don't care. But you care that the cereal bowl's there. You know, you don't care about anything else. It really was. There's family tapes that we have. He did an awful lot of recording when we were younger. Because he always had like, he worked in Aer Lingus, he was an engineer, so we always had travel. We always went to America when we were kids. We always had like really good things like that when we were younger. So like the technology he was getting in Thailand, so we always had like a video recorder. We would always be recording tapes. I could never watch those tapes ever now as an adult. All it is in those videotapes is him telling me to shut my face. Shelly, shut your face. Shelly, be quiet. Shelly, you're in the way. Shelly, you're so annoying. Shelly, you're a pain in the arse. This is literally all I got, and I was 5, in these videos. It's so hurtful to actually hear how much he fucking hated having me around. Like, it was actually so shit, and yeah, I just find like it's crazy now. He's blocked me now because apparently he doesn't like the fact that I'm speaking out about that I had an affair and whatever else. Find it so funny because he actually married his affair. He actually married her, and she was an absolute, there's no other word sometimes for some things, sometimes just the most disgusting word is the word you need to use. She's a cunt, this woman. This woman isn't even a nice woman, right? She used to laugh at my mother and cross the street to laugh in my mother's face when she'd see her. She put her dirty knickers in my mother's drawer. My mother joined an art class because she needed to try and find something to entertain herself after her husband left her at 60, and this bitch showed up in her art class laughing. She was a psychotic bitch, and he married her. And I find it so fucking funny that he doesn't agree with me. You know what? I didn't fucking lick it off a stone now, did I, Maxie? Like, it fucking came from somewhere. So, you know what? I am your daughter for sure. On that, I'm actually going to wrap up this episode. Next episode is going to be next Friday, so 1 week away. I hope you tune in.